Good afternoon. I think I know everyone in here, but I am Dinah Sykes, and we are glad you made it to the town hall. So we just finished week 8 of the session, and everything is speeding up. This week 7, the House passed their budget. The week 8, the Senate passed our budget, so they will be conferencing starting next week, trying to figure out the differences, and then we will vote on a budget that kind of gets out of conference. So this coming week, so the Senate has historically, we work bills on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. This week we are working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and possibly Friday because we are rushed, and Republicans in general in the House and the Senate want us to finish on March 27th as sine die and not go back for a veto session in April. So all of the bills that they think the governor is going to veto will be debated and passed by next Monday. And I don't know what the date that is, but not tomorrow, but the following Monday, because then they count down for 10 days for the governor to look at the bills and veto. So their plan right now is to be able to bills that they want to try to overturn the veto, that we will do that by March 27th. So it is.
And that's the day before we start. We have that break, right?
No, we don't have a break. The 27th is like the drop dead day.
Oh, that's a lot.
Did you get food?
I'm good.
Go ask some. Oh yeah. If you want some, you gotta get it now. She'll bring it up. She'll be closed. So that's my son. He's here on spring break.
We're not gonna be.
Eat the boy.
So the 27th is the final date. We were supposed to go back on April 9th for a veto session, but they are trying to not have us go back and be done on the 27th.
Wow.
So
they need to go and campaign, don't they?
yes, they have to go campaign. So there was a lot. Kind of the floodgates are kind of open now. So Senate Education, we had a bill, the cell phone ban bill, which my colleagues in the House, I think, both voted against it, and that's okay. I supported it. But there was problems within the Republican Party because they didn't want the bill to apply to private schools. Actually, I think it should apply to private schools, and so does the majority leader, and we co-sponsored this bill. So there was kind of an impasse because the president and the chair of education did not want it to apply. Majority leader on the Republican side wanted it to apply, so they were trying to figure it out. We actually passed that on Thursday night in the Senate. It was 32 to 6, I think, maybe it wasn't. It was something like that. We had a couple members not there. So I didn't love all pieces of the bill, but I do think mental health of our kids and anxiety. So I did support it, and I worked really hard kind of behind the scenes, taking out some of the pieces that were actually really horrific and actually would have even opened up Bay State aid for private schools with an amendment. And so got that out. And again, this was going to pass. So with just Republicans, so worked really hard trying to find the pieces that we could protect. But my House members here, they voted against it because of local control, and I completely. Okay, that's not my issue. Anyway, it's a complicated issue, and at the end of the day, I think it's a public health issue for Kansans, and I look at it similar to like the smoking bans that we had in local government, or where like municipalities were passing those ordinances that you couldn't smoke in public places or restaurants, and then the state created that. So that is how I went and debated. But happy to answer your questions.
Does it apply to private schools?
It does apply to private schools. Yes.
Isn't there a caveat?
There is kind of a caveat in there. They have to be, so it's non-public schools who are accredited either by the Board of Education or national or regionally recognized accrediting agency by the Board of Education. So a school could decide that they do not want to be in one of those accrediting processes, so it would be a backdoor. But the way that was is so that it would exempt homeschool because they are kind of in that definition. So it actually does apply to private schools. There is always a way to work the rules in the law to get out. So, another thing, so we've talked about turnaround, where that's the House has their bills, the Senate has our bills. Everything is supposed to have passed one chamber and then go to the other or be blessed by, so tax committee, ways and means, and Fed and state affairs are exempt committees. So anything that has touched that, those committees is still alive. But the Senate president this past week, well, it's actually Friday before, so a week after turnaround, decided to retroactively bless bills. And so I have coined a new phrase called zombie bills because they were dead and then they have now been resurrected. And again, we always say nothing ever dies because there's a way to amend something. But this was really going against our Senate rules. And there actually was a procedural way that you could have done this. Like we could suspend our rules to then have the body say that, yes, we want to bless these bills. But that's not what we did. The Senate president took it up on himself that he could retroactively bless bills. So
Wow.
It's.
Well, it's because he's thinking like the way Trump does.
Yeah.
Trump thinks then it can be done.
Yeah. So I will hit on some of the pieces. Yeah. You could just, yeah. So some of the. There is, yeah, that's what. So some of the pieces on the budget that I think Republicans will say that this is underspending the governor's budget, which on paper is actually true. It's about $12 million below what the governor had. But where she had some one-time spending, that theirs would be continuous spending year to year. So it's really in the out years spending more money. And the other piece, like we know contract nursing is something that we're going to have to pay. So actually that $12 million is actually, they've allotted, I think, $12 million in the budget for contract nursing. We know that it's going to cost the state of Kansas at least $24 million. So that right there is a complete offset. We're just saying we're not spending this money when we know we are required to pay for these. So it's really not below that. Also, there's not a really substantial increase in SPED funding. The Senate version, when we were debating, was at $5 million. They did add another $1 million to that, so it was $6 million. But we needed to put in at least $24 million to actually be where we were from the previous year. So we're not even at the same percentage of SPED funding as we were. We're going backwards. Another big piece of that was on the floor. There was $16 million, which we use for mental health in our schools. It was a pilot program that has been very successful. There are 80 school districts across the state that take part in this, and it's for kids in schools to be able to get some mental health so that if they don't have access to go to a facility. That was completely stripped out of the Senate budget. So I'm hoping as we're going to conference that the House position is protected there.
Okay.
Bye, Ron. Okay. So that was a piece that we have worked on, even trying to have more flexibility because this has been successful. We've seen a lot of benefits and improvements in our schools for the school districts that are approving this. So that was a big piece. That was probably, there is no employee pay raises for state employees. I say even as the legislature, which I absolutely believe that we should have received pay raises. It's not against that, but we are continuing to get pay raises, and actually we will get another raise because our raise is tied to CPI, and we're not giving that same thing to our state employees. So that was a big problem. And my third and final, or maybe it's fourth, I don't know. The other gimmick that Republicans have used in at least on the Senate side for the budget, is they are taking interest, because we still have that $2 billion in our rainy day fund and it's accruing interest. But they're taking the interest and transferring that to SGF, so the State General Fund, to make our ending year budgets look better because of that interest. And so even when you're looking in the out years look like we're going into the red, that is with several $1 million in interest that are being funded back into the budget or for those ending balances instead of staying that in the rainy day fund. And that's a policy decision, but it's not something that they've tried to share, and I think it is one of those budgeted gimmicks. So I will be happy to answer questions, but
artificial bottom line.
It is an artificial bottom line. So, hey, who wants it?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see you, and thanks for being inside when it's so sunny and nice out there. It will be sunny and nice tomorrow, but we'll have no idea because we will be in the Capitol working all day long, which has been the theme this session, which is great to be hardworking, but we're moving so quickly that I feel like even our revisors and staff don't have ample time to review some of these bills that have come up, and perhaps I am concerned mistakes can be made when we're moving so fast. And I believe that I have colleagues who are using AI to write bills. Great strategy, but are they reading them? Making sure they're, lined up with the right statutes and things. We will find out. Thankfully, and here's the other thing with rushing to the end, the governor's staff will have, or her attorneys and counsel will have just those 10 days to review possibly 50 or so bills.
Oh, no, not. You guys do like 150 in your.
Yeah, maybe you'll do it. I don't know if the Senate will do as many as we did, or if we'll actually get them all moving through, but a minimum 50 bills in that week. It's going to be a lot to put on those folks who, when a bill gets enrolled and presented to the governor, the House and Senate staff, they look through that, send it to her, and then her folks have to review it. So that's kind of the stopgap for any serious, ridiculous things we might have done unintentionally or intentionally. And that part of it has given me stress because there's just such a limited amount of time to be able to read every single bill that you're voting on, and it's oftentimes just like right then and there. So that's been crazy. But we are working hard. We are making progress. I would mention, for those paying attention, I think the biggest thing in the news that is national, if not world news, is the bill about driver's licenses and bathrooms, particularly targeting transgender Kansans. I did watch the start of the hearing for the temporary restraining order on Friday, and the district judge decided he needed a little more time, so he said he's hoping to offer an opinion on that temporary restraining order on Tuesday. And as part of that, the council from the ACLU is saying that the state of Kansas immediately invalidated driver's licenses and birth certificates, trying to get more time for that. And the attorney general's argument was basically like, these folks need to have more friends to drive them around, like it'll be fine. So that was a bit extreme, if you ask me. So there's the driver's license component, and then over is the bathroom. And the judge seemed, my opinion of it was, he seemed like, why do we need this? But also we have it. So my job as a judge is to determine if they need more time. or if any of this is unconstitutional, because he doesn't want the local governments, the schools, the government buildings to have to start immediately retrofitting their bathrooms and spending all this money if, in fact, the bill eventually is deemed unconstitutional. So those are the two things he's considering. The ACLU made the argument that the bill is unconstitutional because of the two subject rule. The Attorney General's argument was that that the sex at birth is basically the common denominator there. And then it was like, well, could a single subject be as broad as crime? So that's kind of what they're weighing on that front. It was very interesting to listen into that, because the Kansas is really the first state to go this far. Oh yeah, and the Attorney General also said he was willing to delay enforcement until March 26th. So I think he was hoping the judge would then just be like, oh, that should be plenty of time. So we'll see how that goes on Tuesday. But in the meantime, it's just really disheartening to the individuals in Kansas who the government so easily invalidated 2 forms of ID. For any reason, that for an otherwise uninterrupted driver's license, that is really disturbing to me. And of course, especially in the schools, and with the tornadoes going on, and I know the kids were doing tornado drills this week, and they're like, are we supposed to go in the bathroom with our boy students, or can we be in this bathroom? I mean, it's just the legislature were not that great at logistics, and I don't think we thought everything through, and I think we're overregulating something that our societal norms have been just fine. As long as you're conducting yourself safely in the bathroom, then there's not a problem there. So that one has really been weighing on, I know, all of us, because it was just such a extreme and horrible bill. And obviously nationwide people are like, what happened? What are you guys doing? Is that the only thing we've really sent to the governor yet? I think so.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so that was the priority, I guess. Our budget is moving along, so I can't say we aren't working on that. I think they'll probably start conferencing as early as tomorrow between the House and Senate positions. A couple other things I would mention on top of what Dinah said about the budget. The House position does include $5.5 million for the blueprint for literacy to educate educators on the science of reading, as well as recognizing and working with kids who have dyslexia. Is that in the Senate?
We did not.
Yeah, so that's one where I hope the House position prevails, and that's I did end up voting for the budget. In the House side, it only had 68 votes, and it requires 63 to pass, so it's pretty tight. A lot of bipartisan opposition on the bill. Only 3 Democrats voted for it, but there were a few things in there that I wanted to protect with some bipartisan support on our House position relating to schools. Did you have the $5 million for safe and secure schools?
We did not. And the Senate, it only passed. It was a 21 to 19, so it barely passed.
Yeah, so there's a lot of disagreement among the Republicans that there's too much spending, and then of course, with the Democrats, and then some of the more moderate Republicans, they don't feel there's enough for special education in public schools. So that's that's an interesting divide. And our chair has said they're going to address the employee raises. I hope that ends up happening, but we'll see, because that is something that needs to be put across the board in the budget. Ours has a 1.5% across the board cut. But that safe and secure school funding had been moved out of the Department of Education over to the Attorney General's office for a specific contract for AI surveillance in our schools, and they're moving forward with that. That $10 million is going to be granted out this year, and the school districts are saying, that's not what we wanted. We want to be able to do, enhancements for cameras, locking the facilities. I mean, there's a much broader range that those safe and secure grants offered every year, and they didn't want to have to use it for a specific vendor or AI surveillance. So hopefully that will stay on, because that's again more money for our schools, and if they can access that, it's less that they have to spend out of their own local budgets.
So who are the people who are pushing this AI surveillance crap?
Well, we had a vendor that came to present to some of our committees over in the House, Zero Eyes, and I've seen there are a couple other vendors that offer this programming, but I think it was earlier this year, either earlier this year or the end of last year, there was this incident at a school where it was the AI surveillance recognized a firearm that ended up after a kid was tackled that he had a bag of Doritos. I mean, so they get a lot of false positives on firearms, and then they've also had a false negative where there was a firearm and it didn't detect it. So, and for me, like, I think we over surveil kids. I don't know that we need this type of recognition stuff in our schools. I'm very worried about what it could be used for and what the vendor may or may not be willing to share with law enforcement or whoever else. I just think it's a little too much.
Zero Eyes got in a conference committee 2 years ago.
I think it was last year.
Maybe last year. I thought Molly was in there. Anyway, it was in a conference committee. I mean, it's a no bid contract that really, it was Republican House members got lobbied on this and kind of shoved it in. And I remember in conference committee, we were like, this is a no bid contract, and like, but
Do they have?
They did end up they did end up taking that out, the name of the vendor, but still, I mean,
But
it was.
Do they have any technical people who can explain to them how this stuff actually works?
Well, and the other issue with this surveillance technology is that it's not a one-time expense. You have to pay into it every year. And so a lot of school districts are like, well, we're not going to afford that. And for those who do, the Safe and Secure Schools grant can kind of help out with that. We have another item like that, 911 mapping in our schools, which got in last year. And I voted against doing that because it was a pilot and it didn't cover all the school districts. And I thought, I don't like these pilots that help some but not all. And we know who generally gets to use it first. But thankfully, the state 911 board, when they came and presented, they said they've used up all the $2 million. Those schools are going to start getting their maps. They weren't able to give the grant money out to as many that applied, so the money is in the budget to get the next round of schools, and it's like a GIS mapping of the school buildings, so that if 911 is called in an emergency, I mean, it doesn't have to be a school shooting, obviously, like somebody has a heart attack, the fire, whatever. They have these GIS maps of the schools that help them locate the emergency easier, more efficiently. So we do get some of these things that come before us that I think are good. I generally don't like some of the pilot stuff because it just doesn't reach everybody. But like with the mental health pilot program, we do have more schools that want to use that, and cutting that out is just absurd.
Devastating.
And we have expanded that over the years because we saw the success. I think was it 10 originally?
Yeah, about 10.
I think it was about 10 schools, school districts, but now we're at 80 school districts. So like we continue to add money and expand that. So even though it's still a pilot program,
the funding's still in the House.
The funding is there. I'm guessing that the House, the vice chair is was involved in getting that. When I was on K-12, we had schools that were part of the pilot come testify, and they were telling stories literally like they saved a student who was having thoughts and actions of suicide, and they were able to intervene. The big issue, and I think where the senator was trying to argue it's not people aren't using it. A big issue is that Kansas does have an access issue for licensed psychotherapists and the healthcare providers that can offer these, especially rural. But as we are able to bring in the telehealth, that can help us expand this program to more schools that want to use it. And it was also very interesting at that time because one of the main issues of why we have an access to care issue with these providers is that we didn't expand Medicaid. So Medicaid expansion tends to be an answer for a lot of our healthcare woes, and but with the telehealth, that does really help in those rural areas where they may not have somebody that can provide that mental health care for our schools. So that, I hope, goes back into the budget. That is, I do not see how somebody would select that as any sort of low-hanging fruit in our budget to cut out of there. I have way more ideas of special little things that went in there as provisos that could have easily come out. But we also have the $30 million for the Southwest Regional Mental Health Care Facility in the budget, which is a good for healthcare issues. What was my other? I'm always trying to look at the positive side of our budget right now since I did vote for it, but there's a number of things in there that are really bad. We have a proviso about diversity, equity, and inclusion in our universities. We saw this language last year, but this year it expands to curricula, and the universities have to cross their hearts and swear that they do not teach diversity, equity, inclusion, or critical race theory in any required courses, that it cannot be a required material. It's despicable. So that part of it I really don't like, and it holds funding hostage to our universities until they come forward and say no, we don't teach this stuff. So that's just one example of some of the provisos that get thought up and thrown in there. There's a number of them. Oh dear.
Immunization proviso.
We do have a proviso that was offered that says that the KDHE, Department of Health and Environment, can only expense monies to implement the CDC vaccine recommendations. Currently, KDHE for our schools is using the American Academy of Pediatrics as their guide, and so this changes. The changes between the two are Hep A, Hep B, rotavirus. What was it?
No, isn't that one?
Oh,
also
and meningitis.
like-
A.
So like hospitals who do like you
The
could not
hepatitis.
require a hepatitis test or a shot. Like I think that was in there.
It just says you can't expense monies for KDHE to implement anything other than this. The one interesting thing though that I got back from the revisor is that this vaccine schedule changed the HPV recommendations, and instead of getting to 2 shots, it's down to 1, which is much better. But that will actually add the HPV vaccine as a requirement for the schools that doesn't currently exist. So I find that one kind of interesting because families are going to be surprised, like if they haven't done that yet. You can get them at like 10 or 11, because they moved it to 1 shot and made it a recommendation that would be a potential requirement for schools. We've done some crazy things, and I think sometimes that people don't understand how far-reaching some of their ideas are. And my hope would be that language would get vetoed, because we actually had when that proviso went on, there were 3 Republicans who voted against it as well. So it's very bipartisan.
It wasn't veto-proof in the House.
Well, it's in the budget. It's just a proviso.
That's right.
But when it went on in the House Appropriations Committee, it was bipartisan opposition to it. So hopefully that will get addressed. I'm trying to think of any other. We have a proviso in the House side. The Board of Education changed the cut scores for state assessments. We had some of the most difficult, if you will, cut scores in the country, which made our test scores really hard to compare to other states. They'd always be like, our kids are, failing this, but based on how we determined our different levels, they were not comparable to a state like Florida. So they adjusted those, and then we have a proviso in there that says when the board reports out their cut scores, reports out their test results, they have to use the old cut scores. So that's weird.
We have a bill like that on this.
So, just some random things that people come up with their pet projects that they want to tie into the budget. We're meeting in transportation tomorrow. There is one bill that I'm going to offer an amendment on. It's to make it so that if you have all right, let me back up. Currently, if you have a license plate cover that has like a full clear plastic thing on it, those are illegal. And unfortunately, the way it is in the statute, the actual consequence for that is it's like 30 days in jail and $2,500, which is not happening to people, but this bill moves that over. But on top of it, it tacks in that if you're licensed, if you have just the little border license plate cover and it's partially blocking your state, the name of the state, that you can get pulled over for that. There was a court case, an individual had been pulled over exclusively for that reason. The state you could read it, but it was blocked off. And then they searched his vehicle, found meth. And ultimately the court decided that the reason that he was pulled over was not valid reason to stop somebody and search their vehicle. So yeah, he went free. So the state highway patrol wants to clarify this in law. And I don't like that. Personally, I don't think that is a good reason to pull people over. But I want to add in a educational or grace period so that for the first 6 months that an individual will just get a warning, and then we can really educate the public. Like, take these things off your car. Do not have if it's at all blocking the state, just get that off your car. And I've now been paying attention to this, and since we heard this bill, and I'm seeing so many vehicles that have those on there, and in Kansas is half cut off there. So follow along with that. Be aware, but I don't really support the bill, but I do at least hope that we can have that educational period in there, because I was like, I don't want my constituents just getting pulled over all of a sudden and they don't even know that we changed this and made this definition stricter than what it currently is. That's kind of what I have going on this week.
I do have two good things that we passed. Or you want to go first? So 2 good bills that we passed in the Senate. You gotta find your little bright spots. So one of them is, we talked about the PBM reform that passed in the Senate. I think we had about 2 hours of debate on this, which was actually really good in really vetting the process and talking it through these. But it passed 32-8, and it has gone over to the House. I will say the Speaker of the House is playing games, and they had an informational hearing. They may have a hearing. Do they have one this week?
It's on the calendar, but
Yeah, there is. So he's also been moving it from committee to committee, because I truly believe that the House members, there are the votes to pass this, and they could do a procedure to pull that bill out of committee, except there is a House rule that it has to be sitting in a committee for 10 days before they can make a motion to pull it out of committee. So in order to stop that from happening, he is moving that bill from committee to committee so that it's never sitting in a committee long enough to do that. So that is one to watch, because it is really good. And I think Republicans and Democrats came together, and it was one of my favorite debates, in my last 10 years in the Senate, that we really went through. It was really good. Yeah.
Why is he opposing it?
So I would say he is bought and paid for by the insurance companies, and the insurance are saying that this is going to make your policies increase, premiums are going to go up. We have seen in other states that is actually not what has occurred. You see those prices going down for your premiums and your prescription cost. There is that $10.50 dispensing fee. That is a part of it. He says that's the piece that he doesn't like. That's part of the package. And when you have independent pharmacies that are not even being reimbursed for the cost of the prescription that they're filling, that's a piece of it. But when you put the whole bill and those transparency pieces together, that is how you've seen in West Virginia and other states where they're bringing the cost down. So the other piece, we have had provisos for at least the last 5 years, probably longer than that. But our CHIP, so Child Health Insurance Plan. Sorry, I'm getting on my acronym. I'm really tired because it was a long week. But the CHIP program, so in statute, it has been tied to the federal poverty rate of 2008. And so it's 250% of federal property of 2008. So we know costs have gone up since 2008. So it is very low. So we have been doing provisos every year, trying to take out that 2008. And we actually passed a bill on the Senate completely eliminating that, which would mean we wouldn't have to do it again and again every year. So that was a good one.
Now come to the house.
Now they're in the house. It's in their hands.
So with that chip bill, we have to be very careful. That bill has to go through clean as a whistle. We can't put any amendments, and it is amendable to Medicaid expansion, but we're not. That's just between us in this room. we have to really caution our caucus, and not just the Democratic caucus, but the Republican caucus, not to run an amendment for it, because this is one of the most crucial bills we could actually pass this year. And so anyway, yeah. So we'll be talking to our caucus and saying, please just vote yes and take a deep breath after that. Nobody move, let's just get it through. So I'm on the Veterans Committee, Social Services Budget Committee, and the Health and Human Services Committee. Now the Veterans Committee this year has actually been more active than it has been in quite some time. And so there's one controversial bill, and the other three have been they're good, I think. So the controversial one is allowing a company to come into the state. They're operating in other states, and that is to help veterans get their benefits. Right now, a veteran can get help for their benefits for free. There are lawyers that have been trained and they're accredited through the VA to do that. There are veterans organizations who do that. They've been vetted. They're trained by the VA, and there is also funding that is also given to them, to those organizations, to do the work. But because of I can't remember the year now, when the bill that was passed in federally regarding the Agent Orange. When that bill passed, there are a lot of people that saw ka-ching, ka-ching everywhere. They could see that there was some money to be made off of veterans. And so because of that, these organizations have popped up, and they're for profit. They take a certain amount of money off the top. They've not been on the up and up. They've not been very transparent, and it's hard to hold them accountable. In other states, California has pretty much banned them. Louisiana just won a lawsuit against them for all those same reasons. Well, it's that same company that lost that lawsuit in Louisiana is the company that wants to come here in Kansas. The bill passed. We tried to amend it, and in so many kind of ways we tried to kill it. There were I wasn't the lead to this, but I joined other representatives who are also veterans, and veterans that came to our committee to say this is wrong. This is gave us all the reasons for that. So we couldn't stop it. So it has gone through. Next session, I did get the chair to agree that they would have to make this company come to the committee next year and give us a report of how they're doing. And then that way, that opens it up also for the VA or the veterans organizations to also come to us and say, here's what they're not doing, or here are the things that are the negative impact of that. So at least we will get a report out of them, but we couldn't stop it.
And that one hasn't passed the Senate, and one of the House members
That's
actually
right.
yesterday gave me information. So we were watching that one on the Senate this weekend.
Cool. We passed three of the bills. Two bills very similar. One is not requiring, not mandating, but asking private companies, private companies primarily, to give preference to veterans for employment. That's kind of it's not an unspoken thing, but a lot of companies give preference. They give a preference for veterans. That's been done for years, but this is codifying that. The second thing is for government entities to also do the same thing. You have a question?
Yeah, I was gonna say, as part of, I've been involved in the workforce partnership stuff for, over a year.
A year?
now.
Yeah.
And they very definitely call out, are you a veteran? Are you related to a veteran? That's something that's been, they take into account already quite a bit.
Yeah, they do. And it's not been mandated. And these two bills, they're still, it's not mandating anything. They're just asking organizations. So the question I had was about the government entities, state entities, state departments, is how does that coincide with the funding that Representative Hoy talked about at our universities regarding the DEI? Because for me, that falls into the DEI. And so I've asked them to look into that, and everybody's like, oh, we're not going to look into it. We're just not, going to be blind to it. But I think it clashes with that. But I'm not a lawyer. And then there was the third one. What was the third one? I don't know if anybody knows that right now we have commissions. We have the Hispanic Commission. This is under the governor's office and the administration. We have the Hispanic commissions, the African American. We're trying to get a Pacific Islander commission in, and so there's always been a work group that works with the governor's office that are veterans. It is veteran led. And they've been wanting to have an official commission, because what it does is not only do they get some funding through the state, $165,000 that's not in the budget, so it's adding to the budget. But I think it broadens. It'll give them the ability to have a much wider audience with veterans. So that was the fourth bill that we've passed now in the veterans. Social Services Budget Committee, we looked at all the budget requests for all the different departments. All of them passed. Everything that we asked for passed. It made in the budget. We were like, wow. Appropriations was okay with it. I still voted against the budget for other reasons. Well, mainly because of the SPED funding. So we'll see some increases in all the waivers. There were some increases that people were asking for. We were able to do that, not to the full extent, but enough. So we saw quite a bit with that. So I was real happy with that. House Health and Human Services Committee, we still have a lot of compact bills. So it's for the, for different occupations to be able to have a compact within the state. We've had a series of them again. I don't know if we have any more of them to go. And there were some other bills that a little harder for me to explain because they're still kind of up in the air. I know the PBM. I don't know if it's going to come to the Health and Human Services. I'm not sure where it's going to go.
I don't know.
Go. Well, it's being bounced around because it's going out of health. Thursday it got pulled back.
Oh.
It got pulled back to health.
Okay.
Yeah, so then so
This one that nursing teaching, did you get that one? So we passed it on our side, and there's a lot of nurses. So it's trying to help with those who are teaching and the nurses. So you could, as long as you have a credential above one, you could teach those below. But there's a lot of nurses who've reached out, and that's probably your committee.
it's in our committee. Yeah. We have a few other ones that we're gonna still need to hear. So the MHIT, the health mental health intervention team funding was a stab in my heart when I heard that Senator Gossage took that out. There was 16 million. I think it was 16 million for the MHIT. We called it the MHIT bill program, and she put 1 million into special ed, and the rest of it went into state general funds.
General fund.
Yeah, but it's still in the House, so we're hoping we can still. They've got enough funding to get them through the rest of the year, but they won't have any funding the following year, and it's going to be very devastating. If you want to see a program that works and be impressed, with the outcomes is you can go to the KDAD's website, or you can just Google Kansas Mental Health Intervention Team. It'll take you to that website, and there's a link, and you can just see incredible outcomes for that program across in all the places in the state that are utilizing that service. Senator Gossett is wrong regarding being able to get the mental health services because it's not tied to only the community mental health centers. You can utilize private therapists who are in private practice, so it really opens it up a lot more. It's a fantastic program, and I will tell you, the Speaker of the House is against that. That bill itself is still sitting in our below the line in our calendar. And the reason he won't run it is because former Representative Brenda Landwehr from Wichita that was her project. It was her baby project, and it a lot of us have been really supporting that, and they didn't get along. So he won't run that bill. And
That's what I think is so, like, this is one example, but time and time again, there's a lot of bills that we know would pass with bipartisan support, but there is someone that they would like in a primary for governor with them that has spoken in support of this bill, or like I am in support of something that the speaker doesn't. So it's all about like not giving someone a win instead of giving Kansans the
Yes.
win.
exactly.
And that's what it was with the taxes, right? With not taking sales tax for food down to zero, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
We could have done it all
Right.
at one time.
All at
and
one
we
time.
didn't because
Yep.
the governor would get a win. So.
As far as that one you said that we're talking about, this outside group coming in to help veterans. I know we just received an email from National as far and well as the department telling people to beware of those.
Yes.
To do not partake because we have our people in designated areas that we go to, and
Yeah.
I'm also learning how to be a service officer, so.
Nice. That's fantastic.
So we're trying to keep the veterans from going to those people.
Yeah.
So there's already ideas how to stop that. I mean, I'm not gonna say that you're gonna get somebody from rural Kansas is gonna say, well, I gotta go a long ways to oppose.
Right.
When they can help them there, that might be who might use them more.
Yeah.
We're already being warned, and since we
Yeah,
have
the
a
VA.
commander from Leavenworth that has been going to Washington quite a bit here in the last 3 weeks. He has been pretty much living out of there.
Yeah.
And been talking to them about that.
Yeah. And we hope that the feds will put a kibosh to that because that would help the states. And I know the VA, they put out a fraud alert.
Well, they did put out an
everybody.
alert about taking money away. If you're on your medication, then you're fine. Well, wait a minute. Then why doesn't
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big disaster.
Yeah, and so that
I
fell.
mean, if that's the case, then what about pills that anybody takes?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that one, they stopped
They
it.
stopped it,
Yeah.
but they said they're gonna put it on hold. They're gonna put it on the shelf. So they want to stop it, but they're gonna say it's just gonna be here,
Yeah.
just in case.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of people are already very upset about
Yeah.
that.
So if you're not familiar, who is trying to push that? Is it Kennedy or was it coming out of the? It might have been Kennedy. So if you're receiving, let's say you have PTSD, you're a veteran and you're receiving benefits, and you get better with therapy and or medication. So if let's say they had you at 80% already, and you've gotten better, they can bring you down to 50%. Well, that takes away income.
Yes.
And it takes away other things, it starts limiting and limiting. And we're going, well, that's ridiculous. That would be true for anybody, like you said. If you get better with medication, then okay, then therefore, you can do other things. Well, no, that's not the way it works. But yeah. Yeah, I'm glad that like you said, they put a pause on it, but that needs to not happen ever.
Well, it's fortunate for us that we have a national commander as a judge in Leavenworth, so he's
Yeah.
very well versed in the
Yeah.
law of how to, talk
Right.
with them. And like I said, he's spent the last 3 weeks up there.
Good.
And they just got back yesterday, I think it was, majority of them.
Why? Good.
What other questions do you all have?
Can you, one of you, or all of you, whatever, comment on property taxes, the valuations? I mean, it's gotten to a point, I think ours jumped like 120,000, and there's no way we'd be able to sell our house for that. And they compare an older home, we built ours 16 years ago, to a brand new build. It's to a point people can't even afford to stay in your house. It doesn't do you any good to appeal. You set up an appointment, you take evidence, and so what? Why bother?
So I think the House and the Senate are still on trying to figure out where we can compromise. Previously, I actually, and I don't know where it is currently on the House bill, but I felt the House had a better position than the Senate did. So ours was an artificial 3% cap, and the concern is that then you're artificially capping something at that. And it was the assessed value, so you still could have to pay more because your local governments, they don't look and see how much your house is worth. They're looking at how do I pass a budget to provide for the fire and the transportation, or fire and safety and police and all this. So then your city council, county government, they pass a budget, and then the county clerk tries to figure out, okay, how do we pull in this revenue? So with the Senate position of a 3% cap on assessed value on existing homes, what you would probably see is if that caused them, you would increase the mill levy so that they could still pull, if they needed $100,000. I'm just saying 100. We know it's more than 100,000, but if they needed to pull $100,000, they're going to figure out how do we adjust the mills to pull that. So even that, I think it's, as a homeowner, you're going to be like, I'm going to be capped and I'm never going to have to pay more than 3%, which is not necessarily accurate based on how the constitutional language of that amendment is. The House has a different version. And again, we know that we need to address this, but there's so many bills that we are passing in the legislature. So SPED funding, because we're not fulfilling SPED funding, local governments, like our schools, are having to pull that. And so there's a shift because the state is not putting in their portion. The locals are able to adjust their local option budgets, the LOB and the school funding, and then pulling down. Again, because we didn't expand Medicaid at Johnson County, and I don't know the most recent number, but it was like $7 million of uncompensated mental health care that they were providing. If we had expanded Medicaid, we would have been able to pull down at least half of those dollars to pay for those. So there's a lot of these issues, that policies that we are passing in Topeka are really putting more pressure on our local governments to do that. There are pieces like we've exempted, I think we're currently at 75,000 of your first 20 mils on property tax, and we've increased those amounts to, so you wouldn't have to pay on the first, I think, 125,000 of your house. There's different provisions in there, but the House and the Senate are still not negotiating very well. Part of that is our Senate tax chair is like dug her heels in on this, and she does not want to have a conversation with the House. So and again, it is disappointing because that is the number one issue that we've heard. That is what Republicans said was their number one priority. And we did not even debate the property taxes until after turnaround. That's when we started dating. So that was our number one issue, and we haven't addressed it. Yeah.
But you cause all sorts of distortions. You know, appraisers don't set taxes.
Right.
And we should be complaining to our cities and library boards and,
Yeah.
every once in a while I get one of those things, they're exceeding the limit. But it'll be like, I don't know, the township cemetery board.
Yeah.
And okay, well, they need another $100. I mean, these are.
Yeah.
So that all of the discussions you hear in the news act like the appraiser is the bad guy.
Yeah.
And if you look at your bill, there's like 20 different taxing entities,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody's got to live within their means.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I mean, it's because of what we passed, the state is out of property taxes for, like, we completely eliminated it. And I tell people, like, you can probably order a pizza with the savings that you made because of what this state portion of that was. But it's local, that is there. So, and you should have conversations with them. And I think because a lot of times we are pushing this and not funding the things that we need to at the state level, then we're making the local communities have to bear that burden. And so we have to have conversation. And I think there's another piece of, we talk about the housing shortage in our state, and then we put things in place where a young person is not going to be able to afford a new home because they can have, like, you could have two identical homes and the new one is not under that 3% cap. So it's going to come in and it could be at 600,000. The other could be at 200,000, and it could be the same house. So again, we have to have a comprehensive plan to do this and look at it. But we've also, like, tying our hands. We had a really good program of housing. It was, I can't even think of what it was, that it was Chris Croft wanted to completely eliminate it. So for affordable housing, we had federal dollars that we were getting and the state was putting in a portion. They completely stopped that program, which builders are like, we're not going to build affordable homes if we don't have a way to kind of help subsidize this. And so as real estate, when you have a supply problem, that's going to cause the houses to increase in value because everyone's bidding because they want this, instead of having, how do we increase the supply?
Earlier,
Go ahead.
when they were talking about the AI in the school, and you said there was like 80-some districts that had it from the state. How many districts are in the state?
Oh, that was the MHIT program, the mental health. There are over 200, 100 and, I thought it was over 200 school districts. We've had some consolidation and some closing of school districts, so I don't have, maybe she
It's
can.
gotta be two, yeah, Alicia's gonna go through some right now, I think,
Yeah,
consolidations.
Aletha's got some
Yeah, I'll have to
schools
look.
they're gonna
Yeah.
sell or.
Well, and, the reality is, we don't, the birth rates down.
It's going down.
Going down.
Going back to that housing, we also, there is, and bipartisan, 286. I thought it was over 200.
Except 186, that's how many days of
Yes.
school there are.
The other piece, like we talked about rental, so there's a couple of bills that have been introduced with bipartisan support of looking at, because our rent has gone up and there's not a lot of protections, and I think that also goes to the whole housing issue. And those bills aren't moving either because, like, I had, it was housing protection. It was just a transparency. I think I talked about it the first day, like one of our early meetings, that when you sign a rent, like if you have to pay an extra fee for getting your mail or packages or parking, that they have to show that before you sign the lease. And bipartisan support for this bill, there were over 30 proponent testimony and there were 2 opponent testimony. and that bill is not moving out of committee. They're like, we need to have a interim committee to really look at this. And so again, it's who has the chairs.
Yeah.
Is it like a landlord's lobby or something? Like
It is a landlord's lobby.
Of course it is.
And they're like, we have had this in law since, I think it was in the 60s. And then actually Republicans like, if it's been in the law since the 60s, like maybe we should adjust this. So again, we are picking and choosing and not having comprehensive. But
Oh, it's the license plates. It's bugged me for a long time that how many license plates you couldn't read. But it seems like the police don't even pull people over if they don't have a license plate. So,
Yeah.
So,
I know. Or like expired temporary license
yeah,
plates.
so will they enforce it anyway? But
Well,
I
I
think that
hope-
bugs me.
I kind of hope not exclusively. Like these investigatory stops, they're the ones that tend to escalate, and if there are dangerous situations
That's
like
because
that.
there's something to hide.
But there's really, it's not a good use of time if you can't. I mean, the license plate for the one where they did search, it's totally readable. You can tell it's Illinois. So I will say on transportation committee, there's a number of members that have their little personal vendettas about things, and I have now realized that I am one of those people because I, in college, when I was 19 years old, got pulled over solely because the dealership plate border thing on my plate covered Nebraska, which I had no idea that was a thing, and he was just looking around in my car, and I'm like, why did I get pulled over? And he said, this is, blocking your state thing. And that was it. That was the reason. So I go back to, when I get parked at school, I'll get a screwdriver, take it off. And then the dealership, when I took it in to get my oil change, they put another one back on my car. I was like, my guy, I got pulled over for this. And I wasn't breaking any laws other than that. So that's my personal vendetta no vote on this. And I feel like I've worked very hard to be in the legislature, and I can take these hitting the no button hard votes sometimes.
I just want to say I love this because I voted for this bill in the Senate, and I think that's why the committee process is so important and making sure that the public has time to weigh in because none of this was brought up when we talked about this in the Senate, and I supported this, and now I'm like, okay, I have a little rim around I've got my Casey Current thing, and now I'm going to be breaking the law.
That means most people aren't going to be able to have a frame.
I would suggest you take those off of your vehicle if you have them. That would be my advice to you. I do not put them on there.
I never keep those.
I paid for mine.
And I also would hope that the dealership stop putting them on there and getting you breaking the law
Mine
when you didn't even mean to.
I have a whole collection
I'm
of
just
them.
gonna take.
Yeah, but we did. I mean, the other one we had. So sometimes in transportation we get these bills from the Senate, and we're all like, "Do they ask questions over there?" Because the other one we had was driving golf carts on the sidewalks, and that was very, very unpopular in our committee. And even a former senator even walked out of the room going, "They could just ride a horse," and it was really funny. So I don't think that one's gonna go anywhere, but.
That was the majority leader's bill.
But it is really funny that when you get people, just we're all regular people. We're in a committee talking about traffic laws and all these things, and we all have our own personal experiences that we bring to it. It does make it very, very interesting, and it's often bipartisan. I mean, you can never really pick out who's going to be for or against stuff. So yeah, that one's very interesting.
The big letters, Kansas, it covers that.
A lot of people get their sports teams and things. Those little
So
border.
Partially covered?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Almost.
Yeah. I see most of them.
So
This is your warning. If this becomes law, please take them off your car unless you like getting pulled over.
we had Kansas letters.
I thought it was just the stickers had to be visible.
There's two different something if you can take the risk, if they can see the Kansas in the corner or whatever, then you're fine. But if you want to take the risk, it leaves a lot to the individual officer whether or not they can read it. I mean, that's what it says. If the person can reasonably read it, then you're fine.
If I
But-
was law enforcement, I would be insulted thinking,
The officers don't like the four numbers so close to the letters. there's like a space and you drive around, you can see Texas has 4 numbers with the state of Texas in the middle of it and then the 3 letters there.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that's
Well,
fairly easy.
and we do have the license plate readers to pay the tolls and things, so it can help. It is helpful to be able to read the license plate, but I definitely see the ones driving around with no license plates, all these other things. So, and some of our more rural people on the committee were like, well, what if your license plate's like really dirty and it was dusty and they can't read it? So there's more to it than just the little border. What are license plate cover, I guess.
This is so great.
But yeah, it's we had some good discussion and we're working that bill tomorrow.
And
So
this is why the committee process is so important, and we have just been like completely.
yeah, you gotta hash this stuff out.
Remember we passed the bill for the TNR for the feral cats?
Oh yeah.
That's an interesting bill.
Oh yeah. Tell about that.
I don't
Oh, no.
remember all the whole thing.
Oh yeah.
I just know
To be able to
it's
spay and
been
neuter-
legally.
Protections for spay and neutering feral cats.
Massachusetts passed. Did I share?
And the chair actually said, vote all those in favor, vote meow.
Yeah.
That's what we did.
Oh, so good.
Sometimes we have fun.
So good.
Vote no.
Yeah, and the nose did bark.
You did meow. You passed it. So it makes it legal now. Well, after
That was a house-
if it goes
Yeah.
to the governor, eventually, hopefully. Then if you're doing a TNR, the trap, neuter, release of feral cats, that you would be doing it legally now, because I didn't know it was illegal.
I was gonna say, I've definitely done that before.
Driving around with your driver's license plate cover and your feral cats that you spay and neuter and release. I mean, what is this world coming to?
Everybody in my neighborhood knows I've got feral cats that I've been feeding for like 10 plus years.
So that's why you buy an SUV to have a traveling cat cafe.
Yes. Great idea.
Well,
I guess I was gonna say just the other side of that committee process though is because I'm in the position right now where I have language that's active that isn't going to be heard because of a chair issue, but that language is still active. So I'm like, at this point, I'm seeing both sides of you can pull language from wherever, even if it hasn't had a public hearing, because it's a deeply popular issue that's just being blocked by 1 or 2 people. And so both of that, like, that's just kind of
and
I get both sides of that argument.
And that's what, like, I tell people. So gut and go, like, we talk about all of the terrible things of gut and go, but there are times that when you're in the minority and you try to use these to pass something, so rules are there and they should be, like, there are exceptions, but I think the problem is when we see these procedures and things that should be used very minimally and they're used all the time. Like, that's the problem. Like, I had Tim Carpenter, who is a reporter, is doing a story about calling the question. And, like, we had, in my 10 years prior to this year, like, maybe we've had it twice. And there were times that, like, it needed to be called because, one, we had not passed our resolution to continue the session. So at midnight, we would have lost all of the bills that were out there because we needed to extend the session. So calling the question at that point was really important because if we didn't, we would have just run out the clock. But, like, the House they've been calling the question all the time this year.
Stop debate.
To stop debate. And so it's, I don't know.
I hope he talks to Powell, Representative Powell, because he's #1, loves to use that maneuver.
And we do allow for call the question in our committees in the House, just because we do have to get out of there and the next, like, the Senate's probably coming in for theirs, but it's always been just kind of an unspoken thing that that's why we don't do that on the floor. So we have more unlimited time there, but the reason they called the question on us is because we talked a lot about the anti-trans bill, and when we did the veto override, I still had my button up there, and the question was called, so we didn't get to go say our stuff, but thankfully I suspected they would do that and had my explanation of vote prepared. And that's what I've been telling our caucus. Because the courts, they don't care if we follow our rules or not. We just have to learn to work within the rules as they are put before us, and we still have our minute to explain a vote, so have it ready to go in case you don't get to make your points at the well when we're debating the bill. So there's some adapting.
Yeah, and I will say, like, several lobbyists have come to me, and actually, I hope I'm an insurance commissioner, and so not going to be in the session, but talking to the majority leader of, we need across the board rules for committee, for testimony, because like in this committee, you have to do it 24 hours. This one is 48 hours. And sometimes they don't even let you know that a hearing is going to happen within 12 hours. And so trying to have like a uniform rule so that, okay, you don't have to bring your 20 copies in person. You can just upload it, or like we should have a portal so that you can submit it and then go, because that has been a problem in our committees. And like even lobbyists are like, this is just a pain, because like it's not like there's no planning because of how each chair just kind of does whatever they want to push their agenda.
Yep.
So, all right, it's time. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
And maybe we'll be signing die by when we meet in April.
See you next month.
Yep. Thank you.